We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet to share these conversations on the Vegan Compass podcast.
We extend our respect to elders past and present, as well as any of our listeners and guests. Hello and welcome to the Vegan Compass podcast, unveiling truths, inspiring change. We are your hosts, Rick Allport and Mackenzie Cross.
From wherever you're listening, please be sure to like and subscribe to support this podcast. Now to the episode. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Vegan Compass podcast. We are your favourite co-hosts, Rick Allport and Mackenzie Cross.
And yes, definitely welcome to everybody. And we are very happy to have with us Pam Ahern. So before we get started, Pam, somebody told me that it was your birthday just a couple of days ago. So happy birthday, Pam.
Could have been me.
I
love birthdays. Yeah, I love birthdays. I get so excited. It doesn't even have to be my birthday. It could be your birthday, an animal's birthday. I'm always happy to celebrate it.
Oh, that's just so wonderful. Now, I'm going to start off with asking you two questions. So, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I go by the name of Pam Ahern, and I do my best. I think that's a pretty good thing in life. If we can do our best at whatever we do, that's always be my aim. Never to be the best, but always to be my best.
I really like that. I should keep that in mind because, yeah, that's a really good philosophy on life. Now, Pam, we're going to sort of take you a little bit back. What motivated you to start Edgar's mission? And of course, what is the meaning behind the name?
Well, I think the meaning actually comes out in the whole story of Edgar's mission. I have been a lifelong animal lover, but I didn't actually reconcile that till probably, in my 20s about what that actually meant to be an animal lover. And the first thing is not eating those animals. And that sort of became a bit of my mission to awaken that in others. I truly do believe in the goodness of the human heart and that we as a species do care, but we've just become so disconnected between the choices we make and how they impact upon others. And in 2003, I was working with Animals Australia on a campaign called the Save Babe campaign, which was highlighting our flawed animal protection laws. Most people like me grew up thinking in our society cared deeply about animals. We've even enshrined it in legislation, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. But if you stop and think about that for a while, you think, why is it we treat some animals one way, we have them in our hearts and homes, and yet other animals, we have them on our plates? And what sits behind that is these things called codes of practice, and that allows these things to happen to animals who look a little bit different from the ones who we traditionally, share our hearts and homes with. And the code of practice for pig farming was up for review in 2003. And this represented a golden opportunity to remind people that we have so much power in Australia to affect our legislation. So with the code being reviewed, we wanted to raise awareness with the public that what was happening, in particularly the sow stalls where it was legal to keep pregnant mother pigs in these tiny areas about the size of your bathtub where they can't even turn around. And it just so happened that James Cromwell, who played Farmer Hoggett in Babe, was in Australia. And we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to gain media attention by getting James on board to raise awareness about the plight of pigs? I mean, after all, pigs really did change his life. And it just so happened that the stars just kept aligning with our good intentions and that we contacted James. He couldn't do enough to help us. We got in touch with a journalist at the Age newspaper and we were going to run a story in the Age, but we needed a photo of James and a pig. I approached one of the children's farms to see if we could get a photo of James and a pig, and they said, yeah, sure, but it'll cost you $150. And I said, well, pigs, I didn't really have $150, and I do have a bit of a problem with children's farms, and I don't believe that they're very honest with the children about what happens with the animals. And if you want to know what happens with the animals, or those baby animals when they're no longer babies, have a look at the menus that they have there. I lived in the country at the time, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a pig. So that was when Edgar Alan Pig, trotted into my life and tugged on my heartstrings and his leash and took me in the direction I could not have imagined. The photo shoot went so incredibly well that James decided that we'd do an action on the steps of Parliament House, where he'd trot up the steps of Parliament House with Edgar Allan Pig by his side and demand a better deal for pigs. And I thought this was wonderful. At that stage, I'd had Edgar less than 24 hours. My task then was actually to get Edgar comfortable with walking on a lead so he could actually do this incredible task. So I went down to my local park, which is a town called Kilmore, which what was I thinking when I started a sanctuary there? It's probably why we moved. And I was just blown away by the profound effect that Edgar had on people who would stop what they were doing. They'd come on over and they would ask me what I was doing. They'd rub Edgar's tummy, and he was the consummate ambassador. He'd flop on his stomach when they hit the right spot. And people were blown away. He's so clever. He's so clean. He's better than my boyfriend. And that was the instant that really got to me, that I could speak to people's minds, where Edgar oinked his way into their hearts, reminding them that's where we should keep animals, not further south. And that's really where the idea of Edgar's mission began. When I did get Edgar, he was just going to live out his days, at my property. But seeing this profound impact that he was able to have on people, and he didn't do anything magical like incredible tricks or do calculus or anything like that. He just acted naturally. And that was the most profound impact, meeting these animals and seeing them as unique individuals who might look a little bit different from your dog, but those differences really don't justify the way that we treat these animals differently. And that was where the idea for Edgar's mission began, as a mission of kindness for these animals and a mission as a place of sanctuary where these animals could live out their lives and amplify the voice of the animals who will never know kindness. Like, I quickly recognised I couldn't possibly save all of these animals, but that's really where the advocacy idea came. And the name Edgar, I was thinking of it, I wanted a fun name, an engaging name. And, Edgar Allan Pig, it just makes you smile to start with. And people say, tell me more. And when people's brains are excited and they say, tell me more, they're open for new ideas and receptive, they're not shut down. And so that really also led to the idea of positivity and kindness, and really starting that level of inquiry in people.
That's amazing. I actually haven't heard the origin story of Edgar's mission before, so that's so beautiful. And of course, the sanctuary's now been around for 20 years, I believe. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you faced starting a sanctuary back then?
Well, the sanctuary literally grew, like Edgar. I had no idea Edgar would grow as big as he did, or the sanctuary would grow as big as it did. And I remember speaking to my dear friend at the time, Bede Carmody, when I decided to have this thing, animal sanctuary. I said, look, Bede, I want to start this sanctuary, but where am I going to get the animals from? How am I going to fill the sanctuary? He said, don't worry. Once you put a shingle out the front and say you are a sanctuary for animals, they will come and they will come, and they have come and they have come, along with the many challenges involved. And I think, the challenges, while there are challenges with these animals, particularly caring for older animals and animals who are particularly humanised, they pale into insignificance against the other challenges that you have having a not-for-profit. I think is that growth and actually realising that you can't do everything, and recognising not only what your strengths are, but what your weaknesses are, and finding people who can balance that out, and having the courage to let go and hand things over to other people, accepting help. I was always a person who did everything themselves, and was brought up to that if you didn't do it, it didn't get done. So that was one that was really challenging, accepting help, even accepting donations. When I first started the sanctuary, I was going to do everything myself, and I didn't even want to accept donations from the public. I felt very uncomfortable about that. My dad always said to me that to never expect anyone to pay your way in life. And when I first did outreach, I wouldn't even have a donation tin on the table, and people would see what I was doing and they would want to give me money, and I had to put it in my pocket. And I felt really dodgy about that, although every single cent went to the animal. So that's where even donations come from. And now I'm just blown away. We had a chap this morning came to the sanctuary and made his Christmas donation. He's been making his Christmas donation for about 15 years now, and he comes every Christmas to deliver it. And I was thanking him for his kind donation. And I said, but the thing that, the money's great. We can't do what we do with that money. But the thing that moves me more than the money is the belief, is that people believe in me. They trust me to use that money wisely to advocate for kinder world for animals. And that belief, it's so incredibly humbling. And from people around the world, from little old ladies who give their $5 to someone who gives $5,000, it is, I believe in you, and I won't let them down. I won't let them down.
Oh, look, you. My love for Edgar's mission is, you know it so well. It's just one of the most beautiful places on earth, and you really do animals such a great benefit, and your education is just incredible. So we can't thank you enough for what you're doing for the animals. But I've been there a number of times, but I've never really known how many animals do you have in care, and where are some of the stories? Well, what are some of the stories of the animals that you've got in?
Well, the numbers, they go up and go down, and that's because rehoming is a very important part of the sanctuary. And again, in those early days, I was never going to rehome everything. I was going to be this incredible martyr and save these animals and be their guardian forever. And then I woke up, but that's not possible because there are so many animals who need sanctuary. So, it's determining which animals, need to stay with us forever and which ones people are able to jump through hoops and, prepared to give us a left kidney, and we'll let them adopt an animal from us. And we keep in touch with anyone who adopts an animal. If circumstances change, they come back. But so the rehoming has become an incredible part of the work that we do because we have so many animals come in. And, I don't have to look too far to find the stories of where they come from. And recently we're actually dealing with a very sad case where someone has passed away, and they've bequeathed us some animals and a lot of animals, around 70 goats and 20 sheep. We're in the process of bringing all those animals to sanctuary. We had a sheep come in on the weekend who, this poor girl, her name is Esmeralda, and she's an older sheep. I suspect she's come off the back of a livestock truck. She's broken her back leg, and she's severed the area of her groin. She's managed to get to a property where people were there and saw this animal suffering and realised what they choose to do next would determine whether Esmeralda lived or died. And they chose kindness, and they contacted us to see if we could take Esmeralda. And so she came in on the weekend, and we're working to try and get a good outcome for her. Sheep like Esmeralda really, really touched me because they've got to get old. Somehow they've got through the radars of the system, and her reward for that was to be sent to slaughter. She wants to live. She wants to live so much. At first she used to headbutt me in a few short days with us. She realizes now that, we only come with kindness, and, she loves being stroked behind her ear. She even will bar us when she sees us coming. I just think, living a life in service to these animals is the greatest and most noblest thing that we humans can do. Right now, as I speak, I think we're at around 523 animals, and that's mainly with the goats and the sheep that have come in. We like to sit anywhere between 350 and 450 animals. That's a good capacity for the land that we have here. It's 153 beautiful acres in the Macedon Ranges. And part of, caring for these animals is also caring for the land. I don't believe we own this land. We're borrowing it from the future and taking it on from the past, and it is caring for that land, being good stewards for the land as well as the animals who live on it. So we don't want to overgraze the land, push it to its limits. So we want to be responsible in the animals that we have here at the sanctuary.
I think one of my favourite stories of the animals there is Leon Trotsky, and where Leon came from. And it was just such a beautiful story. And to see him running around on his little wheels, that I think, and of course you managed to get Leon on some of the, I think Sunrise did a story on Leon.
Yeah.
And they were amazed. And what shocked me the most is they were amazed that you wanted to give Leon a really good life. And I remember Koshi and I can't remember, Natalie Barr, I think, and they just looked at each other in shock that you wanted to give Leon just a beautiful life and you had him on the wheels, and they couldn't understand why.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, when you meet these animals, you see why. You see why we go to the lengths that we do. When you hear Leon's story, Leon was a tiny little pig born on a commercial pig farm, and sadly his mother, who was disabled herself, fell on Leon and crushed his pelvis and his hocks. And so both his back legs were compromised, and his squeals, touched the heart of the neighbour who learned that Leon was going to be killed. realizing that she couldn't provide the care that Leon needed, she reached out to us. And that was, that was in the days before we actually moved to this sanctuary. We actually were just transitioning to the sanctuary here. And we learned of Leon's plight, and we were so touched by this little piglet who just wanted to get on with the business of living. And we thought, well, what can we do? We needed to make a little cart, and no carts came that small. So we got one off the internet, and we made it really, really teeny tiny, and we put Leon in it, and off he raced in this little cart. And him doing that, he just raced into the hearts of so many people. And yeah, he made that onto the news, but he was also the Huffington Post most influential animal of 2014, which is just
Wow.
absolutely that, a pig could actually do that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I actually haven't been to Edgar's Mission yet, but I've heard so much, amazing
have to
stories.
go.
I have to go, absolutely. But it brings me to, Edgar's Mission is one of the most well-known animal sanctuaries in Australia. So how do you think you've been able to gain that kind of traction with the public?
This is a really interesting question. And my background actually comes back, and it's probably not a good one for a vegan, but maybe it is. I started out as an equestrian. Like as a child, I loved horses. The first time I saw a horse, I just the most magical beings. And we lived in suburban Melbourne. We had a very small backyard and even a smaller budget. And, my pleadings for a pony fell on deaf ears. And my mum always said, the worst thing you say to Pam is you can't. And it wasn't because I was a belligerent child, far from, you never heard a peep out of me, but I loved a challenge. I loved a challenge then as I love a challenge today. And the intrepid child that I was, I got my scooter, I took the wheels off my scooter. My mother wouldn't even let me have a bicycle because they were way too dangerous. So you can see why the pony was out of the question. And I made this saddle and I put it over the kitchen stool, and I used to ride my imaginary horse around for hours on end. I think my mum got sick of all the noise I made and not having any pantyhose. So she took me down to the local pony club. And that's where my relationship with horses and farmed animals really began. And I learned so much, not only about other animals, but also about myself and what I was capable of. I started going to shows and those things in the equestrian world. As I said, we never had much money, never had, fancy horses or anything. But my aim was always to be my best, never to be the best. And the reason I wanted to be my best was because that was the most comfortable way I could interact and ride my horse. The consequence was I actually ended up being very good at it, and I became a national Australian champion as a law of unintended consequences of actually wanting to be my best for my horse. And that has really thrown through into everything I do at Edgar's Mission. I never set out to be the best sanctuary, the most famous sanctuary, or anything like that. Just set out to be my best. And I really want to inspire that in other people, and even with, people working with animals, is to be your best, because we can't all be the best, but we can be our best. And that way we will always win. Because when we look at this competition thing, it almost becomes this, selfish rivalry. You want to try and find the edge over someone else. And I like to think of a greater scope of a community, like we're all interconnected, and that includes the animals. And when we can be our best, everybody wins.
I love
everybody
that
wins.
so much.
So inspiring. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned community. You built Edgar's Mission now around a community of volunteers and supporters. So what do they do during the day? Because you do have volunteers there, you do have staff there. So what is like a day running Edgar's Mission like?
Different every single day. You have your template of your plan. We start in the morning, first thing in the morning when the sun gets up, we get up and the animals are let out, the animals are fed, checked, areas are cleaned, everything sanctuary is maintained, and then it sort of comes down the other side of it, and then any animals who need to be put away at night, any animals need to be fed, and then there's the final checks, and then we shut down for the night and we do it all again. But we may have some animals like, Esmeralda, who might be on an IV drip, who needs to be checked. We might have little orphan lambs who live in my little cabin with me. I've got an incubator in my cabin so I can check them throughout the night. So all those other things will come into play as well. Our amazing volunteers, they give up their time so selflessly to come and help. And most of their tasks involve poo. And isn't that so damn amazing that they come here, a stinking hot day, a freezing hot day, and they know they're going to be working with poo, and they do it with a smile on their face. absolutely blows me away. And just interesting, our smallest animals on the sanctuary are our chickens, are our birds, and they are the most labour-intensive animals because they poo. And I say that if we humans pooed like chickens, like we'd be pooing like dinosaurs. Oh my gosh, they're little poo factories. God love them. They may be small in size, but I say everything is about them. Their personalities are big, and so's their poo.
Yeah, I have 2 rescue chickens from an egg farm, and both of those things are true. Very loud, huge personality, and they poo a lot.
But meeting them, and it is that life of service, and it really does give meaning and purpose to your life. To live a life of service is a life well lived.
Absolutely. So advocacy and education is also a huge part of your work at Edgar's Mission. So can you tell us a little bit about those type of campaigns that you run?
That became, very obvious very early in the days of Edgar's Mission. When I rescued Edgar, I started looking at the numbers of farm animals in human care. And when we actually look at the number of animals who are farmed for food and fibre, they actually represent the largest number of animals in human care. When I was starting advocacy, we'd have to sign a petition against animal cruelty. People would walk up and think they were signing a petition to stop cruelty to cats and dogs, and they would be surprised about, well, farm animals, what happens to them? We kill them, we take away their babies, we put them in, impoverished lives. The cruelty that is visited upon farm animals is so often unseen, but is sanctioned by so many people by the choices that we make. I say to people that we are all farmers by proxy, by the choices we make. I'm very adamant at Edgar's Mission that we never tell people what to do or what not to do. I've got no authority to do it, and I've got no guarantee that if I tell them what to do, that they'll live it. But if we can connect people with the goodness of their hearts, they will live that kindness, however difficult it will be. And that's where the advocacy steps in, to tell people the facts of what's happening and have the courage to allow them to take the path of greater good. And the meat industry now has campaigns to tell us that we must eat red meat. We never had that when I was growing up, but now we're having it. They feel we must do this because I think that they're so scared that people may have an individual thought based on compassion, kindness and justice, that they will choose the right path. And I think that's our greatest tool is that advocacy. Like, it is incredibly kind, and it's a beautiful thing that I saved Edgar, and both of our lives have changed, and we've changed the lives of all the animals here and several thousand animals who have passed through our sanctuary gates in the last 22 years. But in terms of, the animals suffering, the other number of animals who are killed every day, it's nothing. And that's where the advocacy component is so incredible. That's where, the advocacy started, through storytelling of the animals. And again, I had no idea that it would take off, that it has. English was never my forte. At school, science was always my forte. And I love science because it was so logical. But then when I think about it, I guess that's why I became a vegan, because it seems so logical. We care so deeply about animals. We advocate for animals. How can we eat them and expect to be taken seriously? And, it's bringing other people to the table and getting them to start to think about what's on their table.
Well, I might actually give you a call at some stage soon, because I don't know if you know that I'm now working with Vegan Australia doing the education campaign in schools. And I need to pick your brains, because your storytelling, everything is just the sort of thing that we need to be taking into the schools to help illustrate what's going on. But this brings me to really our next question. And this one I think is just absolutely wonderful. And when I saw it, I actually leapt out of my chair and I cheered, because you recently won the TikTok award for TikTok for Good award. So can you tell us all about that? That's amazing.
That is amazing. And the platform that gave us to speak on, I grew up thinking TikTok was a biscuit we ate, and this is a social media thing that's really taken off. And Kelly Denham started the program when COVID happened, telling the stories of the animals. And I think the true heroes here are the incredible animals who are telling their stories, and all they do is act naturally. As I said, like with Edgar in the park, didn't do anything incredible, amazing, but giving people a window into the joys that we hear at Sanctuary, that positivity, and seeing these animals as individual and cheering for them. Like when Sally, the sheep who hadn't walked for months, took her first steps, people around the world absolutely cheered for her. and really made them think about what they were eating. So it's a really lovely way to, serendipitously get into people's hearts. And the platform that's given us is amazing. And I didn't think we had a hope of actually winning that award against all the other, it's the first time an animal sanctuary's been nominated to win that award. I was just absolutely blown away by the prestige that it's given us, the credibility that it's given us, but also the ability to end animal suffering and cruelty for good. It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting. And you've also won the Animal Justice Foundation Sanctuary Award. Do you have any other milestones or, prestigious awards you want to mention too?
The Animal Justice Foundation one was absolutely incredible because, recognising the work of our humane education program is really good, because it's been one of my babies all along, is that humane education. It is so important as a part of sanctuaries. It distinguishes us from places like petting zoos, where people can go and visit animals. That humane education program is so incredibly important. And when I actually, was starting Edgar's Mission and building the sanctuary and looking, visitors coming in, I've really created this as a place I would love to have come to when I was a child, to have my feelings about animals and the natural world validated, not vanquished. So that recognition that we're on the right path is just incredibly amazing. We've won a couple of other awards on the way. The Bupa Foundation had a social media award, and Edgar's Mission won that, and the People's Choice Award. And it was really interesting when we went to the awards there, and all these other different, what they call influencers were there. And this sanctuary that was built around a pig, people were quite blown away that this pig had the incredible impact he did. And I was just talking to someone the other day, and I said, what would have happened if it had been a grumpy pig who didn't like me? Like, we wouldn't be having, this talk today. And I think, sometimes the universe does deliver you what you need at the right time.
It absolutely does. Yeah, yeah.
So looking back on everything that you've achieved at Edgar's Mission, is this how you envisage your life to unfold?
Joe, I never really thought about it. I never thought that far ahead. And I'm probably a business strategist's worst nightmare, because I didn't really have a business plan. And when I embarked upon the idea of starting a sanctuary, and I was talking to a friend and told them what I wanted to do, they said I was nuts. And they said, look, most businesses fail in the first 2 years, but I know you, Pam, a bit tenacious. I'll give you 4. And and we're still going. And I really think it speaks to the core values that started Edgar's Mission. It was never to make, $1 million or to create all of these incredible things. It was really out of, authenticity, humility, and kindness. They were the 3 core values that started the sanctuary. They are the 3 core values that guide me today, and they're the 3 core values that I trust will come on in the next generation of those who lead the reins of Edgar's Mission.
Beautiful. What do you think has been the most rewarding part of your journey so far?
Any animal I stand next to is rewarding, to know that I've made a difference in their lives. And that includes the human animals as well, to actually know that a small part has actually made a difference in their lives.
So are there any exciting updates or announcements that you can sort of share with us?
Oh, well, look, we're really looking forward to moving ahead, and expanding our humane education programs. Looking forward to 2025. Kayleen Ideas has come on as our executive director, and she just honestly is a younger version, smarter version of me. And I really look forward to actually the confidence that gives me for Edgar's Mission going on. When I do decide to shuffle off this plane, that Edgar's Mission will be in good hands.
Wow, you're so inspiring, Pam, and you just radiate so much kindness. I can just see it beaming out of you, and it just spreads so far. All of those animals are so lucky to have you, and all of the people you've touched as well. So we really appreciate you coming on the podcast to tell us about Edgar's Mission and, your very humble beginnings.
I remember, I think I'd been following you for years, and I remember, reaching out to you a couple of times, and then I think one of my most valued memories is coming down in 2014 and actually meeting you in person. You were my animal rescue hero, and it was one of the most amazing things that I've ever done is to actually come in and say, "Hi, I'm Rick." And, it was so cool. And then the next year was another one of my favorite moments when I actually got to introduce you on stage at the Animal Activist Forum. And I felt so honored to be the one introducing you.
Oh, bless.
Seriously, you are, to me, one of the most amazing people on the planet. I love you so much, and I love Edgar's mission so
bless.
much. And we can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing. Now, before we go and sign off, what's the best way for people to contact you and, your email or website, and social media, and of course your TikTok account?
Yeah, jump on all those social media things. edgarsmission.org.au is our website. We're on Facebook and our TikTok handle at Edgar's Mission. I love that. I just love that we have this generation of young people to come on and do these things for me. I even had trouble logging on to do the podcast, but I always say, I'm really good at looking after animals. So, don't worry about that. Good at looking after animals, not so good at technology.
We won't hold that against you. Was there any parting words or anything else you wanted to mention that we didn't ask?
If we could live happy and healthy lives without harming others, why wouldn't we?
I love that so much. It is just one of the best mottos and slogans I have ever heard in my life. So, Pam, from both of us here, we love you. We love what you do. You have opened the hearts of so many people. So thank you so much for being here today on the podcast. We really appreciate you.
I really am humbled. When you meet me and you say those wonderful things, I used to, get embarrassed and think, they need to have someone who's, beautiful and incredibly wealthy. And I'm just me. But I think in doing that, anyone can do it. Like, you don't have to have all these exceptional talents just to be your authentic self and be guided by your heart.
That really radiates from you, Pam. Like, honestly, I'm feeling a bit teary because you're just so positive, and it gives me hope that I can really relate to your attitude. So it gives me hope that there's other people out there like me too.
You have to get down to Edgar's Mission.
Do.
And I'm hoping to come down and visit you early in 2025. So I'm hoping to be down there sometime in February. So I'll let you know.
All right,
thank you so much.
We'll let you go so you can.
Thank you so much for being here with us. And folks, that does bring us to the end of another podcast. What a wonderfully inspiring episode this has been. So thank you again, Pam. And we look forward to seeing everybody next time on the Vegan Compass podcast.
See you next time. Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to the Vegan Compass podcast, unveiling truths, inspiring change.
Be sure to follow us on social media at @thevegancompass_podcast. See you next time.